you for joining us for another episode of The Little Radio Show. My name is Sandra Fernandez, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Juan, Alanis, and Anjelica Cazares, and we're bringing you small talk about big topics. This week, we're revisiting one of our most popular episodes of all time, episode number 5 from July of 2015, and it's all about food. What we like, what kinds of food they have in Houston, what we don't like, what our grandmas made us, and so on and so on. Just a reminder that you can catch us every week on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Central Time on hmsnetradio.org. Our show archives and the link to our iTunes and Stitcher channels are available at thelittleradioshow.com. As always, The Little Radio Show is brought to you in partnership with HispanicHouston.com and JuanOfWords.com. It's no secret that Houstonians eat out more than practically every other city in the country. In fact, I think that the Zagat survey continuously comes back saying that in Houston, we eat out more than 50% of our lunches and dinners in restaurants.
Well, I believe that. I believe that we do eat out a lot more than the typical.
We have so many options.
Well, do we eat out more because we have so many options, or do we have so many options because we eat out more?
I think
the chicken before the egg, or the egg before the chicken, or whatever.
Yeah, I do believe that we do eat a lot more. Considering that we do, we eat out a lot more than we possibly should.
Well, most of my family's up in Detroit, and I'll go up. And we went up and did a visit with them a couple of times last year because of some family reasons. And we're there and we're asking for recommendations on restaurants where to eat. Everyone had maybe one recommendation. In Houston, people ask me, do you have a recommendation on a place to eat? And depending on the type of food that you want to eat, I can probably name half a dozen just off the top of my head.
Where is it? Is it authentic? Do you want this street style? Do you want that?
It dumbfounds me that sometimes I go to a restaurant and they close certain hours. They're open for lunch and they'll reopen for dinner. Yes. But I find it very offensive that I can't go in whenever I want and get something. So yeah, you know what? Yeah, I do believe that
you're inconvenienced.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing about Houston. We are very spoiled. We want what we want when we want it.
I don't think it's that we're spoiled. I think that we have to drive everywhere because we can't get around by foot or any other way. So we have to drive everywhere. So we want to be able to drive somewhere and be able to find food that we can eat at whatever time we want to eat.
Well, but specifically, when one of my former jobs, we'd have people come in from out of town, and the first question everyone asks is, can you make a recommendation on a great place to go eat Mexican food? And then my question to them would be, what kind of Mexican food? And there'd be this deer in headlights look back to me. What do you mean, what kind of Mexican food?
Do you want authentic? Do you want Tex-Mex? What do you want?
Coastal?
Yes.
Do you want northern? Do you want southern?
Do you want seafood?
Do you want fusion?
Yeah, we do have a lot of options.
And so it's okay, well, and then they go, well, what is the difference? And you start explaining. And so most people are more familiar with Tex-Mex. Actually, most people are most familiar with, to them, Mexican food is burritos and Taco Bell.
Well, I call
both of which I love.
Hold on, I call that San Antonio food.
What?
Because they are the capital of Tex-Mex. I am sorry, okay? That is the capital of Tex-Mex. Here in Houston, you can get Tex-Mex, but it does get a little different.
But we've got some wonderful Tex-Mex restaurants in Houston. Now, before we go into what is Tex-Mex and what is not and whatever, you can't talk Tex-Mex without mentioning that Ninfas, the original Ninfas on Navigation, is credited with creating the marinated fajita-style dishes in the U.S.
No way!
If you look up Ninfas, or there are books out about where fajitas came from, she and her restaurant on Navigation are credited with creating that dish.
Wow. Well,
so that's kind of a big deal.
Well, too bad you can't patent something like that, because imagine how much money she'd have right now. She would be able to patent fajita plate.
So fajitas, what's currently known as, fajitas, actually became famous through her restaurant, and many people emulated that style of dish from her restaurant. Now, of course, some other restaurants do say that that's not right and whatever. It's even in Wikipedia.
Wow. When I think marinated fajita, I think Matamoros, and this is a carniceria, which is, I don't know how you would say that in English.
Meat market. A Mexican meat market.
Yes. Yeah. I think buying my meat there, and I've always known it to be there. So to think that how long has a restaurant been around?
1980s.
Well,
more than that, maybe. But as I understand it, the trend started in the 1980s.
But she brought it to the mainstream and made it popular.
She made it to the mainstream.
Yeah.
Well, where did she get to marinate the fajita?
I don't know.
It is from the barrio, so it might be from somewhere else. I'm sure this has been a tradition. It was part of her culture, and she shared it out, and made it something that was we can't discredit. We can't discredit what she did. So yeah, I could see why they would, why she would be.
The original Ninfas there is no longer owned by the Lorenzo family that created the chain, but it used to be a chain of restaurants in Houston, or it still is. Their style of food is Tex-Mex.
Yes. Yes, it very much is.
Yes.
When we walk in there, we know what to expect. Now, when we walk into other restaurants, when we go to Mexican restaurants, we know that it's going to be quite more, maybe a little bit more authentic. Now, it's really hard to get authentic Mexican food, like what Mexicans eat in Mexico and what Mexicans eat in America might be a little bit different. It is, it is a different in taste, and it is the dishes are different. It seems like refried beans aren't exactly a thing in Mexico. You can do it, but you get beans in ollas type of thing.
I think even regionally, there are like differences. Like even in Mexico, there are like regional differences. Like depending on what part of the country you're from, if you're talking about a certain dish, like it's made different in different places. Like, for example, we have in San Luis Potosí, they're what people call tacos potosinos, and they're red tacos that you put cheese inside, and they really don't come with meat, but they're really good, and you add
well, you have to mention
cabbage on top and stuff like that, and they're really good. But if you go to another place and you say taco potosino, they might not really know what that means.
Well, you have to mention that the tortilla is red itself, which means they
red
mix
corn.
Yes.
Right.
Well, no. They actually add the chile sauce into the mixture, and this is what makes the red tortilla. It's not red corn, and this is what enchiladas potosinas are. No, tacos potosinos.
Tacos potosinos. And see, for me, like the Tex-Mex, like to me, like I have to be in the mood for Tex-Mex because I grew up on Mexican, like what I consider authentic Mexican foods. But there are certain times when I'm in the mood for just a bunch of queso on top of my food, yellow queso.
Oh, is this what you're talking? Is Tex-Mex?
Yeah, I like Tex-Mex.
So are you saying that Tex-Mex is just cheese on everything?
No,
I don't.
No. So for those of you just tuning in, this is the Little Radio Show, and today we're talking food, and specifically Latino and Mexican food, and the differences in them. In Houston, let's go back to the different types of Mexican food there are in Houston. Well, we're talking just Mexican food. There are all sorts of other types of Latino food represented in Houston.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
so
many.
Normally if someone comes into Houston, they want really good Mexican food. I talk them into going out and doing something else, like going to Churrascos or Americas and having South American food, or going to a place to get pupusas, or going to Peruvian.
You said the magic word. I was just going to say the same thing. She said the holy grail pupusas.
For those of you
Can I just say, the other day we were driving down the street and we Googled on our phone. Like, I told Anjelica, we didn't know that we weren't familiar with the part of town we were in. And when I was like, we're in the mood for pupusas. And I said, just look up pupusas on your maps and see how many little red dots pop up. And sure enough, she did. And a bunch of them popped up. And there was one called the Pupusa Buffet. I was like, oh my God, I have to go back. We have to go back and we have to go eat
We don't
there.
know what this is. We don't know what this is. We don't know if there's an actual buffet of pupusas. That might be a little bit, that's a little scary. We might not want to do that.
But in my mind, I see like a buffet, a table full of pupusas, all kinds of pupusas, and I want to go and try them all.
Is this heaven to you?
Yes.
Now, for those people who have never had a pupusa, what they are is they basically look like a Mexican gordita, but they're not. You describe.
Well, see, to me the difference is like that they're sealed and the gordita's open. So the gordita's open face, and the gordita you put meat in. So you put beef, you put chicken, you put like actual meat inside of it.
There are pupusas with meat.
Well, there's pupusa with meat. What I see the difference, the gorditas are can be a little bit smaller, and they're cooked first, and then you open it, and then you stuff it. But my grandmother does something with the gorditas where she puts chile and then she puts the cheese and then she squishes it together and she puts it on the comal. This is my understanding how they make pupusas. Now the pupusas
you actually put you put whatever goes in it while you're preparing it before it even goes on whatever you're cooking it on.
So basically you stuff it before cooking.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. My grandmother does this also. She does this with cheese, with goat cheese, and she's been doing it for years.
So she's been making pupusas and calling them gorditas.
Wow, I think so. But she does. We do reopen it and add things in it, and that's the difference with pupusas, that you add whatever fillings on top.
Right.
Now, pupusas are Salvadoran food.
Yes.
Well, they can be Salvadorian food. They do also have them in Honduras and southern Mexico. I believe they make them also.
My brother-in-law is Honduran, and he's the one who introduced us to pupusas. And I'm going to tell you that I found that the best places that make pupusas are these little hole-in-the-wall places. Like, it's a bakery, and they also sell pupusas kind of place. Yes. And then, okay, I never remember the name. What's that sauerkraut stuff?
Curtido.
Curtido.
Oh,
okay.
Curtido's so delicious.
That curtido stuff, I'm telling you, they give you enough to feed an entire army of people. We always have leftover, and I will put it on hot dogs.
That sounds good. Hot dogs and curtido.
Oh,
I never have enough curtido because I have one pupusa and then I have
curtido
all over it, and then hot sauce all over that, and so
no, he really does. He really does.
But if I talk people into going out and doing one of these things, like going to a nice place that also serves pupusas, like Gloria's is a really nice place in Midtown. They do sell the Tex-Mex food, and they do serve pupusas. Now, these are not going to be the, oh my god, the oil seeped through everything types of pupusas, but they're really good. It's a nice environment. It's a really good place for a business lunch that people can get introduced to this type of food.
But you gotta, if you want them to stick to the food, you gotta introduce them to the mom and pop places, because then you're not gonna get.
But they're scary for first timers.
The taquerias, I mean, the other food that I'm like a big fan of that I like, I need to find a good spot to find this is like the arepas. Have you had Venezuelan arepas?
Yes, I have, but I've never gone to get them.
And I know one time I went with somebody who's Venezuelan, and there was like a little bus somewhere, like a little bus taqueria somewhere, and it sold arepas. They made them like there on the spot. They were so good. And I always drive up and down Westheimer trying to find it. I can never find the place.
And this is us looking for food on. But the thing is, in Houston, when you find a good restaurant, you start to mourn when you see them close down. That's happened to us like twice. And you're like, no way. How? Why would anybody allow this?
I'm still mourning Van Lock.
Oh, yes.
Van Lock was my favorite.
One of my sisters just became acquainted with, what are those Vietnamese sandwiches?
Oh.
Chocos.
No. It's
is it the banh mi?
Yeah, the banh mi sandwiches.
Yeah. Okay.
She's like, oh my god, they're like on these French baguette things, and I'm like, yes, I've had them before.
And they're crispy. They have to be crispy, because we've had them when they're not crispy, and we're like, this and that.
So,
we are spoiled with food. Yes, we do eat out a lot. No, they have to be crispy. Now we're getting very specific.
They do.
And even with food that we're not, we do. We are very spoiled.
But in Houston, my family, we're very outgoing when it comes to trying different types of food. So there's an Indian buffet place that we really, really like out in NASA. And we just found a really great sushi
place. Which we need to go to.
Yes. They have the best chicken tikka masala. I had the luck of working someplace where we had an author of an Indian cookbook. And I bought the book and I went through. And one of the things that she told me was that Mexican food and a lot of the dishes that she had in her cookbook had a lot of similarities, and you go through, and she's absolutely right.
That's really true, because my sister used to, when she worked in DC, she worked with a lot of people who were Indian, and there were a lot of people that were also Mexican in the office, so they would have these buffets, or these days where they were potluck lunches or whatever, and they would bring in all the food, and she's like, oh my god, it was like so similar to Mexican food.
And, the curries really are a lot like moles.
Moles.
But if you go to Thai food, one of my favorite dishes in Thai food is chicken and peanut sauce, and basically it's like those moles that are based on peanut butter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and the naan is very similar to tortillas.
Yes, it is.
We actually, when I was a journalist, I was doing a story, and I did a story on an Indian restaurant.
Are you trying to say when we dated? When we were first dating, Juan loved this Indian restaurant. He would take me to it. Now, it would make my stomach hurt, but I could not stop eating.
It was so delicious, and the guy actually took us back into the kitchen. He showed us how they prepared everything and how he made the naan and the traditional little stove or whatever. And it was pretty cool. I was just like, man, this is like tortillas. Except they're thicker, but they're good.
Well, if you're just tuning in, this is the Little Radio Show. And as you hear us, we're walking through the different types of food that you can find in Houston and their similarities with Latino food. And I'm going to be honest in that I go through phases that I like to try and cook stuff. And so my mother is very fond of Greek food and Mediterranean food. I take her to this place over on Richmond that serves lamb. She loves lamb and with the fresh pita bread and hummus. And to her, this is all, they have the tabbouleh, which to her is basically just cilantro with lemon, as she calls it. Cilantro with lemon. And so this is the sort of stuff that she likes. And so I learned to make hummus from scratch, and I can make it pretty well. I went through my Thai food thing. So chicken and peanut sauce is one of the things that I can make very easily. Italian food, I can't quite make pesto yet. But we were talking earlier, before the show started, about the things our mothers make that we can't make.
There are certain things that my mother makes. Like, for example, I've gathered with women, we've gathered around a table, and we do tamales. Now, what goes in them, all I was ever in charge of was like the grunt work. Yes, was the grunt work. Was the spread.
Yes. Spread with a little spoon.
The spread on the husk. The spread on the husk, and then you fill it with things. And this is what they would make me in charge of, because they never gave me the way of how to prepare the masa, and it is grueling work. Now they would also bring me along.
How you prepare that thing?
They would bring me along and be like, okay, so we added the ingredients. We need you to mix this. We need you to knead it together or whatever. I'm not sure what the term is. And here we are, and I mean, it is a workout. I'm not sure how they do this. Now I understand why they only do it on celebrations, like the end of the year and Christmas and Thanksgiving. That's it. I mean,
but there was a step in there where you have to you have to do something with the masa to make sure that it's just right.
Yes.
And I don't know what that.
Are you
step
talking
is
about
called.
when they grab it and they take a little baby ball and they put it inside the water and see if it floats or sinks? Yeah.
When I was little, and I'm talking really little, my mom made tamales every once in a while, but it was a lot of work. My two sisters were small and they don't remember. The Christmas after my father passed away, I think my sister was feeling very nostalgic. She decided we were making tamales, and we tried to talk her out of it. Oh my God, and we tried to talk her out of it, and she was determined we're making tamales, and so fine, we went along with it. My mom and my grandmother walked us through the whole thing. We made about half as many as she had thought we were going to make, because we were all exhausted. It is hard work. These tamales look like monsters.
Did y'all just get lazy and start making big ones?
Yes.
That is funny. My mom would have hit me. She would have smacked my hand.
No. You should have seen these monster tamales we ended up making.
Were they good? That's the question. Were they good?
Of course, they were awesome. We made them. But it was like 2 tamales and people were full.
Well, that might be a good strategy, because normally you have to make a crap load of them to get people full, and and then my mom, when she would make tamales, she would always have tamales left for weeks and weeks, because she'd stuff them in the freezer and they'd be in there, and those things could last
my
for
mother
weeks.
has a empanada recipe that she got from her mom that I've been meaning to learn, and I just haven't. Sometimes I help her out with it. But my grandma, she lived a long time in Detroit, and at some point, her empanada recipe incorporated cream cheese to make the dough instead of lard. So the dough would come out nice and flaky and very light, and I always really liked it. But I've never learned to make it. Now, my grandma made a chicken and rice dish that my mother never learned to make. That is still the best chicken and rice.
So who makes
ever.
it now?
Nobody got the recipe.
Nobody learned how to do it? Oh, wow. Well, one of the things that my grandmother make is those gorditas that we cannot get down to save our life. It is a very specific cheese. It is a very specific chile that she uses. And when she does it, we all gather. There's a very specific
process, I'm sure.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, and then she has those lovely hands to do it with. And we try, it crumbles apart. We're like, this is not helping. So, but when she makes them, we gather around, and she's very specific. They cannot be on the comal inside. It has to be over wood outside. And we're like... So when she sees us turn on the fire for the pit for other things, she's like, that's perfect. Go give me my ingredients so we can make these. We stand around and wait for them. We get them hot and we're like, ah! And that's it. If you're not there to get one, you're not going to get one. Like, but this is something that she makes that my mother does not make, and something that I'm probably not going to learn to make. Well, you know what? I'm going to grab her and see if I can actually get her to show me.
You see, and I acknowledge that, I realize now in hindsight that I grew up very, very spoiled in terms of food because my mom made...
I'm sorry.
Fresh.
Isn't there a story where you try to run away and she lured you back with fried chicken?
Well,
yes, you were very spoiled.
Let me just say...
Did you leave him little pieces to follow?
No, I
believe
believe the story goes that she went outside and she started, I have food for you. You like the fried chicken.
Well,
and he came back from the woods.
Well, I will say, let me say two things. I was a very fat kid.
No, that's not what we said. What I said is you love food.
I'm saying that. I was a very chunky kid, so I was very spoiled when it came to food. And the chicken thing was... fried chicken was always my favorite. My mom would make fried chicken.
Had you forgotten to pack food when you ran away?
And I got mad. I would get mad, and like when I was like 8, 9 years old, I would get mad, and I'd be like, I'm leaving, and I grab my little things, and I'd be go into the woods, and my mom would just start frying chicken, and sure enough, I start smelling it. I'm like, oh my god, okay, I'm hungry.
Oh, good Lord. But you see, that's the difference. I didn't grow up. My mom didn't make, for us, traditional Mexican food. I grew up, my mother made lasagna and bologna and cheese sandwiches and fried Spam sandwiches, which, by the way, I remember we ate all the time. Macaroni and cheese and egg salad and that kind of stuff. Now, for my dad... She would get up early because he worked in construction, and she would make the homemade tortillas and make the tacos and pack him his lunch. And then she would make us our French toast for breakfast and pack us our bologna sandwiches and whatever to go to school.
Even today, one of my younger sisters was telling the story last weekend where, my mom was making her tacos to take to work. And she said, she took her taco to work and she put it out and somebody was like, oh, look, you have a taco. And she shared it with her coworkers. And she said, they took away my tacos and they were like, these are so good.
Meat for us in our home was a luxury. It was something that we got on a rare occasion. So we grew up with a lot of beans and fideos and rice and a lot of egg. And of course the egg had to be made differently with the migas. That's the corn where you first like dip it in a little bit of oil and then you add the eggs on top and then you add the salsa and then the tomato and then the cheese. So on and so forth. Well, you could add cheese, but again, the cheese was, it was a little bit expensive. So American cheese, maybe, but, we love that yellow brick cheese. So
let's go back to the fideos.
Oh, yes.
Because, again, fideos are one of those things that most people have never heard of when it comes to Mexican food. Fideo is one of those authentic Mexican... we
Soups.
made it at home. It's soupy.
And what did you call it earlier? You said it was...
I called it Mexican pasta.
Yeah. No, you said it was the Maruchan of...
It's the ramen of Mexican food. Yeah. Because really, mostly you would go to Fideo because it was cheap, it was easy to make, and you could feed a lot of people. And then
because it was... somebody mentioned something dry Fideo one time. And I was like, dry Fideo? That's not fideo. You got spaghetti. I don't know what you're talking about. But no, the point of fideo in the Mexican households was because it was
soupy.
It was soupy and it was water and you can make a lot.
It had broth.
It's very versatile. You can serve it with like whatever you like. Yeah. You serve it with beans. You serve it with cheese. You serve it with chile. You serve it with with
meat sometimes.
With potato. Yeah. And you did fideo with pollo. You did fideo with this. You did fideo with that. You can eat it with
a spoon. You can eat it with a tortilla. You can...
No, I think only you did that.
Slurp it.
Yes. One of my brothers, whenever, my mom was the type that when you go to her house, she's like, what do you want me to make you today, mijo?
And he's like, fideo.
My brother would always be like, fideo.
And now we're seeing that there are some restaurants that have started serving fideo in Houston. It used to be you really had to go find a hole in the wall place to serve you fideo.
I think we live in a neighborhood where that is just kind of common custom. You get a little bowl of fideo before you get your meal.
Yeah.
Now, when I lived in Mexico, fideo was always part of the comida corrida. You went and you ordered a comida corrida for lunch, which was basically
like fast
the
food.
blue plate special.
Yes.
Yes, it was a blue plate special.
It's what they made and they ran out and that was it.
And that's it. And they made it and there was no deviation and I want the blue plate special and they brought it to you how they brought it to you. fideo was always the first course.
And now what you're seeing is a lot of the high-end restaurants, like they'll give you small servings of fideo at the beginning as, like a starter. And, it's funny because it's, fideo is so common. It's like
fideo was the working man's food. Yeah. It still is, actually.
Yeah. And now it's like also high-end because it's so prevalent in the culture.
But they still don't have the recipes down to what it does taste. I've tasted in other places and it's like, yeah, it's okay. But then so when I see it on the menu and I'm like, ooh, I'm going to order it.
You know what you're not tasting? You're not tasting the consommé.
The consommé? Is that what I'm not tasting?
That's what you're not tasting.
You know what I'm not?
The caldo de pollo cube that my grandma would drop on there.
Maybe that might be it. But true. I'm so used to the onion and I'm so used to the tomato that would be as the base.
Yeah.
And that oh my God, my mouth is watering now. That savor, that savory thing that happens when you smell it, you inhale it, and it just, it's
smell
home.
It, you inhale it.
You inhale it, you do.
Now in Houston, you can even find places like that serve tortas and whatever, and there's a place I've heard of, and I can't remember the name of the restaurant, where they actually sell fideo tacos.
Fideo tacos.
Oh, yes. I think it's I forgot the name of it too, but they specialize in nothing but tacos. You can get all kinds of tacos there, right?
If you are just tuning in to the show, this is the Little Radio Show, and Juan and Anjelica and I, Sandra, are talking about food, and specifically Latino food and Houston and other places. So as you go through, and if you're not someone who eats Latino food or Mexican food on a regular basis, Houston offers a lot of variety. And so you can go through, you could do a tour of Houston and go and do fusion, go and do coastal, do the taqueria, do the torteria, do the Tex-Mex,
right.
do the authentic Mexican, and then go and do the northern Mexican, and there you just went through Mexican food. And then you have Honduran and Salvadoran and Colombian, which is also different. And then South American. You can go further into South America for Peruvian food, which there are several places in Houston, and then do Cuban food. So I love Cuban food, by the way.
Cuban food. Oh, yes. I love their shredded meats. I'm not
sure. Oh,
yes. Yeah. I can't think of the name.
Ropa Vieja.
Ah, there it is. We had that in Miami.
And the Cuban sandwich. Oh, that's delicious as well.
I was introduced to that when we went to Miami for a conference, and to say the least, we went back 3 times, and we were only there for 3 days. I mean, it was...
Well, if you're going to go to Miami, you have to have Cuban food.
You have to.
They probably have perfectly good Cuban restaurants here.
They have these...
I have yet to find a good Cuban
Have you ever been to
restaurant
Café Piquet?
And several people have told me I need to make
my way around there. It's out in Bel Air,
there.
and I'm telling you, I've been very happy with the food there. The Cuban sandwich everybody goes for, but they've got really good tostones.
Cuban sandwich, that's what I've been wanting to taste. The Cuban sandwich.
So
I've heard so much about that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they like. Is it ham or how would
it's ham? It's ham and
there's a bunch of different cheeses that go in there, right?
Yeah.
I
think I saw it on the Food Network.
And it's on a kind of a baguette, and it's done like the banh mi, where it's crispy.
Oh.
Yes.
So is it like a panini type thing?
Yes, it's like a panini type thing. And unfortunately, if you go to a mainstream restaurant and order a Cuban sandwich, it's really not going to be the same. Very few mainstream places do the Cuban sandwich well.
I've done that. I've gone and ordered a Cuban sandwich, and I'm like, I don't know what this is. It's not a Cuban sandwich.
No, have you ever ordered a Cuban sandwich at a Mexican restaurant? That's interesting.
Oh, wow. No, I don't think I've seen
because
that.
they serve tortas, and I guess they figure they can also do a Cuban sandwich. No,
you can't do a Cuban sandwich.
I made the mistake of ordering a Cuban sandwich at a deli, and it was like really bad. Yeah, I was like, oh, what is this?
So there are a lot of Houston restaurants that do specialize in a lot of cultured food. But besides Mexican and Southern and Latin America, I mean, we got an array of Indian, Chinese, Japanese food. And I think...
But the thing that makes me smile fairly frequently is my dad was a construction worker. My dad worked in construction, so I remember going with him to either drop stuff off or pick stuff up and whatever. And the taco truck would come, and the woman who spoke no English whatsoever and sold the tacos to the guys in this little truck, and they came every day. And now you go around Houston, and there are food trucks of all sorts.
Everywhere.
And as much as we'd love to continue talking about our adventures in food, that's this week's show. Thank you for joining us for another episode of The Little Radio Show. We invite you to check out our iTunes and our Stitcher channels and leave us a rating or a review. You can find the link to both channels at thelittleradioshow.com.